God damn, I need IPA.
This is Beering Ain't Easy, your podcast for beer humor, dad humor, and beer tastings from Texas and beyond. So crack one if you got one and turn it up.
Welcome to Beering Ain't Easy, Season 2, Episode 24, with Ryan and Drew.
Welcome back, y'all. We have got an awesome episode, as usual, for y'all. Today, we are going to be tinkering around with some adjuncts.
You know, I like tinkering with adjuncts.
Hey-o. So before we let the audience know what our adjuncts is, do you have any come in hot moments, like bathroom etiquette that you need to get off your chest this week?
You know, I haven't been in any brewery bathrooms lately. I wish I had something for you. you know, that's one of my favorite spots in town.
Yeah. I was hoping it'd become a regular segment of the podcast. All right. So for the listeners, if you have not listened to this previous episode of Beering Ain't Easy, I recommend you go back to it. But we did an episode called Peanut Butter Stouts, where we compared a bunch of peanut butter adjuncts in stouts, and it was a lot of fun. And we decided what was the most peanut butteriest of all the beers. Well, we've one-upped ourselves and gone with the Adjunct Series theme, but this time we're going to inject some fruit. We got some blueberries for y'all today.
Yeah, summer's winding down. Fruit adjunct seems like a very summery concept to me. So why not ring out the end of the summer with some blueberry adjunct beers?
Yeah, I felt like going back to like a fruit beer episode after something like Oktoberfest was probably not a smart move. So we got to get this one out of the system. And I see that you're wearing a blue shirt today in honor of the blueberries.
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
I'm sure it was intentional.
Yeah.
So not only are we doing a blueberry adjunct series where we decide which of these beers taste the most like blueberry, we have found 4 different beer styles that have blueberry as an adjunct. So we're going to drink them all and tell y'all what's the best beer style to put blueberry in.
So I got to ask off the top, Drew, like when you think of a blueberry beer, like what style do you immediately think of?
I automatically go to a sour. Like that's usually when you've seen it. It's just without a doubt, like blueberry sours.
Yeah, same. Exactly. So you want to introduce some of these beers that we're going to try?
Yeah. So the first one we've got is a blueberry blonde ale. And this is from a local beer from Galveston Bay Brewing. We haven't made it out there to the brewery yet, but I've had a couple of their beers. So I'll have to read the side of the can on this one because it says, "One kiss from our blonde will remind you of a handful of fresh blueberries rounded out by this ale's signature smooth finish." And there's a lot of like seduction talk on here. So I feel like I'm going to get censored for talking about blondes on here.
If they're going to go on that theme, you'd think they'd go with like strawberry blonde.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of like blueberry blonde.
Not the crowds we roll in as dads in the suburbs.
This just has podcast canceled written all over it. So do we want to crack into this one first, or do we want to introduce the other beer styles too?
Yeah, let's introduce them all, and then we'll do them one by one. Because I have further questions before we really get into this. Okay,
what's the next one we got on the radar?
So the next one's a cream ale. It's Fullbrook Blueberry Cream Ale. So another one that we have not checked off the H-Town Brewery Challenge yet, but I feel like that one is going to get checked off soon.
And they're in Richmond, right?
Yeah.
All right. And the next style we've got. We went a little out of state because it's a little hard to find a lot of blueberry beers all at the same time. Boulevard Brewing Company, Blue Money Blueberry IPA, coming out of Kansas City. I'm excited for that one. I think that could be a potential good mix.
Last one we got coming up is Prairie Artisan Ale's Blueberry Boyfriend. It is a sour ale with blueberries and lemon zest.
Ooh, that one actually sounds pretty good too.
So yeah, this is the one we said blueberries sounds like they go in sour. So this is the sour. So we'll see if that proves true or if one of these other ones takes the cake. So I guess I got to ask Drew, have you ever had any of these beers before?
Well, I know I've had the Blueberry Blonde by Galveston Bay. And I may or may not have had the blueberry cream ale. That's all I'm going to say about that.
That's not all you're going to say about that. What's going on?
So as it has been well cataloged on the podcast, probably one of my most painful beer festival experiences was going to the Houston Museum of Natural Science, where I proceeded to try lots of beer in large quantities without drinking water or really eating enough food. So this beer, according to Untapped, was tasted on that evening, but I vaguely remember on that day that I had a beer that was like, this is a blueberry beer. And that was the last beer I remember drinking in that event. So I can't tell you too much about the flavor profile. So I think I'll give them a fresh start today.
Love it. You said you've had the Galveston Bay beer before. I don't think I've ever actually had a Galveston Bay Brewing beer, surprisingly enough.
So one thing, being on the south side of Houston, you're up in Cypress. They probably don't distribute as much over there, but they hit the Total Wine in Pearland. And so there was one day where I think I bought like 4 singles of theirs. So I'm always looking to try new Houston breweries, but it's not the same as going to the source. So we're going to have to head out there.
Oh, yeah.
How about you? Any of these you've had or none?
None. So I'm excited to get into this.
Blueberry Virgin.
Yeah. I wouldn't say blueberry virgin, but virgin with the assortment that we have here today.
So I think we need to get into some predictions before we crack the first beer. Which beer style do you think is going to be the best beer style? And do you have any other bold predictions on?
I do have. I don't know if it's a bold prediction, but I have a take on blueberries in general, and maybe I just have never had like fresh in season blueberries, but like I feel like blueberries aren't that like. There's like it's like very mildly sweet. Like I don't think they like have that punch of flavor. So I feel like they go best with the sour because the sour carries so much of the weight of it. And it just gives a little hint of like that fruitiness. Like the sour IPA will have like the hops and a little bit of sourness to back it up. The blonde and the cream are just going to be like kind of mellow with like a little bit of blueberry. So I feel like sour is going to win. And I know, as is tradition, that's going to come back and bite me in the ass here in about 20, 30 minutes. What are your thoughts?
As you were talking about blueberries as a fruit, like I just was thinking about like my kids. Like I have one kid that will not eat a blueberry if it's too squishy, and they have to be like the really hard ones, which are typically more sour. And then I've got the other kid who doesn't like the hard ones because they are too sour. And it just made me think like maybe you make a cream ale with like the big fat, like kind of squishy ones that are a little milder in taste. And then you make the sour out of the ones that are a little more compact. I'm sure that's how you brew it, right?
Yeah. With how many blueberries you need, I'm sure they're sorting them by firmness.
I'm also imagining like a couple ladies like stepping on blueberries like they're grapes to make these things. We're gonna have to get into brewing, but we'll save
talk about that.
But back to the prediction, just to be a contrarian, I'm gonna go with the blueberry cream ale because obviously, if it was good enough to knock me out of a beer festival, then it's gonna win today.
Bowing down to the knockout punch.
Yeah.
All right, I like it.
I'm also really excited to compare the colors of all of them because in my head, I'm again thinking like everything is going to be the color of a blue shirt like you're wearing, but I have a feeling we're going to have a range of colors as well.
Agreed. Yeah, we talked a little bit about this going into this, and I was thinking in my head when you cut a blueberry in half, the inside's like that like pale, almost like straw tan. Like that's not a good. It's lighter. It's not like blue. It's got like the inside of a grape color.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the juice color is. So unless they added dye, I'm not 100% sure these are going to be super blue. So I'm pretty curious to see.
There's only one way to find out.
Let's do it.
Right off the bat, I'm looking at this, trying to see if I can even get the slightest hint of a purplish, bluish color, and I'm getting none. It's kind of a straw colored. It looks like a blonde, but in a beer kind of way, not in a creepy get canceled kind of way.
Don't get in trouble, Drew. Yeah, it is. Yeah, very straw. Like, have you smelled it?
I do get blueberry on the nose for sure.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of shocked at the amount of aroma I get off of it. I thought it'd be very mild, but it's not.
It's got a great aroma. I guess we didn't ask the question, but I do like blueberry as a fruit. I don't buy it a whole lot because it's an awkward fruit because they're just like a bunch of pebbles and it's not like a big single piece of fruit you can like bring to work or something. But I like the aroma, I guess is where I was going with that.
I tipped my hand with the bias a little bit when we were talking about it. I'm not a huge fan of blueberries. I just don't really get them. But this does smell really, really good. So maybe I'll learn something new. Maybe this will be another beer glass episode where I'll be a convert by the end. So honestly, it is like the mild sweetness that I talked about, what I associate with blueberries, but it comes across so clean in this beer that it almost like, if it wasn't carbonated, you could almost fool me that it was like blueberry juice. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot more blueberry flavor in this blonde than I thought there would be. But it's like what I like about it in this beer is it's not like overwhelmingly sour or anything. It's still a blonde. It's like a crusher. I think the test is going to be with these beers with blueberry flavoring. Could you do a whole lot of it? Because I call it a crusher, but I don't know that I'd go back for two of these just because there is a lot of blueberry going on in there.
That's a good point. I was about to say, like, if I was outside, like, at a pool and it was 100 degrees outside, this would be incredible. And I would say I would be like headed for this one, but you're right. After you finish one, is it going to become too, like almost syrupy? You're going to want to change it up to something different.
Yeah. I know I've had this one before, but it's been a while, so I'm pleasantly surprised with it.
Yeah, same. Very, very happy so far.
All right. While we're sipping on this one, do we want to circle back to this topic of how are blueberries added into beer? This was like an Ask the Brewer question.
It literally was, Drew. I asked the brewer about this one and got quite a lengthy response.
Oh, hey-o. And when we're saying Ask the Brewer, I will remind you that our inside source is none only but Ryan's twin brother, Alex, who runs the Nook Brewing Company in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
Yeah, check them out. Follow them on social media if you're not close by enough to visit. Yeah, so it turns out you can basically add blueberries anytime during the brewing process and in any form. So I'll break into that a little further. So you can add the blueberries as the fruit themselves, either fresh or frozen. You can puree it first, or you can just get an extract flavoring. So those are like the different formats of blueberry you can add to your beer. And so you can either add it during the boil, during the primary fermentation, or during the secondary fermentation. We've covered it a couple times, but just as a brief refresher, you transfer it over to the whirlpool and you add your hops and stuff, and then you put it into a fermenting tank. And once it's fermenting, that's when the yeast is eating all the sugars, turning it into alcohol and CO2. And then you can transfer it to a bright tank where it undergoes a secondary fermentation, and then a lot of like the after flavors and stuff will settle out or get eaten up by the residual yeast.
So I've always thought of adjuncts as coming in at the very end of the process. So like when you said you could do it in the boil, that kind of blows my mind a little bit because it just seems weird to throw something like that in that early.
Yeah. And so the issue with adding a fruit like this to a beer is since it's such high sugar content, like the fruit juice, it's ripe for bacteria growth. So you have to sterilize before you add it to your beer. It'll ruin the batch. So the good thing about adding it during the boil is that's what sterilizes it. It kills off all the bacteria during the boil. The problem with that is you can cook the fruit and it can taste like cooked fruit. The other issue is since you're adding that sugar to the wort that early, the yeast will eat up that sugar too, and you'll lose like most of the fruit flavor. So the vibe I got talking to my brother is that's not really a good spot to do it. But you can do it.
You can do it if you don't want to have to like get fancy with sterilizing and all that.
Yeah. And so then moving on down the process, you can add it during the primary fermentation. My brother says that's the biggest infection risk because it's most vulnerable to the yeast and the bacteria. And yeah, most of that fruit flavor will be kind of scrubbed from the yeast eating it all up. He straight up said secondary fermentation is the best time to do it, which is kind of when you would expect all the adjuncts to get added, right? most of that good flavor. So there, you still have to, like, if you add fresh or frozen blueberries, you still got to crush it up because that skin, that outside, will kind of protect it otherwise. So you still got to kind of crush it up or puree it or do the extract.
So the crush it up. So theoretically, you could go back to my scenario of like a bunch of people like crushing blueberries like grapes and then throw the crushed ones in.
Yeah, it was pretty apt. So
nice.
Yeah, so you still run the issue with bacteria getting in and ruining the batch,
especially from people's feet, right?
Yeah, for sure. So apparently, some people just take that chance. But the other way to do it is you can on small. Like when my brother was experimenting with fruits, doing homebrew stuff, he would vacuum seal it and sous vide it to kill off the bacteria before he added it in. But apparently, yeah, you can still get that cooked. You run the risk of the cooked flavor. There's chemical sanitization you can do, just like spray it down. Or purees. If you get purees from suppliers, those are sanitized coming out. So, it's a sealed container. So you can just add the puree into the mix. The issue with that is it can cause cloudy beer. You can't really get a clear beer with it.
It's perfect for smoothie sours, though.
Yeah, right. And apparently that's the most expensive option. So the extract flavoring is the easiest and probably pretty cheap. And apparently it's reliable and consistent, which I can see. It's the same potency. You can add the same exact amount. What results you're going to get, and it's going to be clear because it's just like a clear additive. But it can taste, syrupy and artificial and like candy. And apparently, it also lacks a lot of depth of flavor. It just tastes like a flavoring. There's not levels to it.
So that now that you've you and Alex have graced me with all this information, that as we drink these beers, I'm going to put you on the spot as how do they, where they added their blueberries and how.
Yeah. I was about to say, aren't you sorry you asked?
Yeah. Thank you for that Brewer's Corner moment.
Yeah.
Let's crack into the second one. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so as a reminder to the listeners, this is the Fullbrook Blueberry Cream Ale. Oh, man, I got to foam over. I'll be right back.
Uh-oh. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a foam over event. This is not the first time this has happened in the Beering Ain't Easy podcast, so we are prepared for it. And I will show you the picture of my beer, Ryan, and you can see that while mine didn't foam over, it definitely came out a little foamy.
So, Drew, how does your taster look as you pour your first glass of it?
I'm holding it up next to the blonde ale. It's definitely clearer, so it's a very clean-looking beer. The blonde, as expected, looks a little bit cloudier, so there's good clarity on this cream ale. Like I said, got a very foamy head on it, but again, not seeing any signs of color. It's just a light straw color.
Just in the period you were talking about that, I'd poured the glass and it was like 3/4 foam. And then by the time you finished, all the foam had subsided. And there's just the tiniest little layer of foam across the top now. I'm shocked how fast that foam subsided.
Yeah, I'm used to cream ales pouring pretty foamy. That was a little extreme, but what do you think about the nose on this compared to the last one?
I don't know if I get any blueberry. I get some of like that like ale kind of yeasty aroma, but I don't really get any blueberry. What about you?
I was getting blueberry for sure.
Were you?
It smells more like blueberry dessert, if that makes sense. So when I take a sip of the cream ale, I get like a tiny bit of blueberry bite, like right at the first sip where there's like a little bit of tartness to it. But otherwise, it's not a very overwhelming blueberry taste.
It's very mild, but I do really like the carbonation. Like when you take that first sip, it like stuff's happening on your tongue when it first goes in your mouth. It reminds me almost of like a pop rock sensation. I don't know if you're getting the same thing I am.
Yeah, and when you look at your glass, like it's very effervescent. You're right. There's just a lot going on in there.
Effervescent.
So I listen to other beer podcasts, and I'm always amazed at the amount of words they can use to describe beer, and how woefully inadequate my words are. So I try to change it up from time to time.
Effervescent and mouthfeel are my two favorite words when talking about beer sensations.
Yeah, you don't need anything else than that, right?
Just It's so pretentious.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like what my final thoughts are about this one. It may be one where we'll have to circle back to it, but
I want to circle back because my first couple sips, I was like, oh man, I like the first one a lot better. But the more sips I have of this one, the more I'm like, man, I want to have another sip. And I think a lot of it has to do with that carbonation.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to, yeah, you're right. I want to come back later and have another evaluation.
Yeah, I think like one thing that I like about cream ales just in general is that they're usually low ABV. It reminds me of going to like baseball ballpark type of beers, foamy cream ales, and they're easy drinkers. There's never anything offensive about a cream ale. So
I do have a mental block. Just the fact that it's called a cream ale, like, just hits my ear the wrong way.
Oh, you don't like the word cream?
It just sounds so gross to me. But you're right. It is such a light, like non-threatening beer, but I'm like, ugh.
Now we know how Ryan is triggered.
Yeah. Need to save that one for the hot takes episode.
Yeah. I can't drink beers with the word cream in it. I'm like over here like jittery and like antsy wanting to get into some of these like more sour beers. I really want to. I don't think we've gotten the overpowering blueberry yet, so I'm counting on these last two.
In order to come back to it, we got to move on to the next one. So let's do that.
Oh yeah! So we're drinking Boulevard Brewing Company Blue Money Blueberry IPA.
Drew.
Is it blue?
Go ahead and pour this one.
Oh hell yeah! Now we're talking some purple color. This is what I signed up for on this episode. Oh, that's a pretty color too.
So it's not blue, but it's like a deep red almost.
I don't know if it's the lighting in my room or not, but it almost has a little bit of a purple hue to me. But I like it.
I'm interested in this one already.
I know a lot of hops have a little bit of a blueberry flavor to them already. Do you know what those hops are? I know this.
Yeah, I don't. I need to get have you ever seen those big posters that have like all the hops and all like the flavor profiles like around like the wheel? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Also, have you ever seen a social media account for Pints and Panels where they draw these like really cool artistic pictures of like beer styles and like what flavors you get with them, and they sell artwork with it? It's really cool.
That I've not seen that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Speaking of artwork, I think this is my favorite can art of the options that we have today. I'm really into this.
There's a lot going on it.
I saw it as I was collecting them to do this episode, but now that I'm actually sitting here looking at it, like I love like the subtle details they've added all over the place. It's pretty awesome. Yeah,
it's almost got like that early 90s computer feel to it, where like the little computer windows and the text, and
yeah, pretty cool.
So I'm going to go out and make a bold statement here. This beer does not smell or taste at all like I expected it to.
So it smells like a blueberry candy to me. I haven't tasted it yet.
It smells like cooked blueberries to me. So cooked blueberries.
Oh my goodness.
It's like blueberry pie. It smells like blueberry pie to me.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I was fully expecting the synthetic, like the artificial blueberry flavor, and I got straight up cooked blueberry flavor. Circling back to the brewer's notes, you think these were added during the boil or were sanitized by heating them before adding to the fermenters?
Without a doubt. All right, I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw this beer, I thought it was a sour IPA, which I've become a fan of because they're usually sour, and there's a lot of hops that go with it. And I just like the two of the combos. I feel like the hops balance out the sour. But what we found out in our extensive research that this is not in fact a sour IPA. It's a seasonal IPA with some fruit added to it. So it is not sour, and I'm kind of blown away that I don't actually taste a lot of hops. Do you taste any typical hop flavors in this beer?
No. I was pleasantly surprised with the first two as far as like blueberry, what blueberry flavor can do with the beer. And this one is just like, doesn't do a lot for it, I don't think.
This would turn me off from blueberry beer because it doesn't taste like fruit. It tastes like cooked fruit. So I think right now I've got a thumbs down on this one. Sorry, Boulevard.
Yeah, I'm glad we did the brewer's note segment because I never would have picked out that cooked fruit flavor. I just would have been like, why does this taste so weird? And that's exactly what it is.
Love it.
All right, so I mean, I don't want to waste any more time on this one.
Yeah, let's get to the grand finale.
Yeah. Ooh, all right.
Ooh, best color out of the 4.
I can't argue with that. I came in being like, you know what, blueberry juice like isn't that colorful, so like I don't expect any color, but I do very much appreciate some color when you're drinking a blueberry beer. I didn't realize this until tonight, Drew. You want to describe the color that we're looking at here?
It's I'd almost give it like a pink more than anything, but it's kind of a deeper pink color. It's not like bright pink. It's almost like pinkish purple. How would you describe it?
That's pretty close to what I would describe it as well. My thought was like if you took like a pink Jolly Rancher and started soaking it in some water and it started turning the water pink, and then like right at the end you threw in a purple one and just let it darken it up a little bit, and then you pulled them out. Like that's kind of what I was thinking.
From looking at this, like I think you hit something dead on about the appearance and like what you expect from a beer. If I see a beer like this and I sip it, I have a good idea of what it's going to taste like or what I expect it to taste like. But if I grabbed this cream ale or this blonde ale and I just saw it sitting on the counter and I just took a swig of it and I didn't know it was blueberry, it would really piss me off because it doesn't look like it tastes.
It'd be very disorienting.
Yeah.
Even if blueberry juice doesn't really look like much, like there's an association there with what it should look like. So yeah, there is something to be said for that.
I feel like the sour ale, the nose on it, the aroma, like it's subtle. It doesn't the blonde and I actually got more out of the blonde and the cream ale from a nose, but you can definitely, it tastes more, it smells more like a sour blueberry. It tastes like a sour blueberry, what you would expect.
Yeah. Smelling this one, I wouldn't have been able to tell you it was a blueberry sour, but I would have been able to tell you that it was a sour. Like you get that hint. You're like, oh yeah, there's
something funky. Yeah.
Something tangy going on here. So you're right. As far as blueberry aromas, those first two kind of knock this one out of the park.
It's pretty tasty.
I'll be damned if that isn't pretty refreshing.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. Blueberry works on this one for sure.
I guess since we're sipping a blueberry sour, do you have like a preference on fruit adjuncts when you're drinking a sour?
I don't know that I've ever thought about what my favorite fruit in a sour is, but there was a Goza that Martin House Brewing made called the Mystic Mountain Blueberry. It was inspired from Ricky Bobby. There's a long story with beer ain't easy at Martin House and that beer, but that was also a very refreshing sour. But I mean, it was a Goza, so you have that salty, saltiness with it too. So blueberry, I think, is a really good fruit for a sour. But I can't think of one that just jumps out as my favorite. How about you?
So I got to start out by saying that, that Mystic Mountain Blueberry was probably my favorite Martin House beer I've ever had.
Wow,
it was really good. But when I think of sours, yeah, my first response is raspberry. It's like my favorite. I've had a really good sour from Cascade Brewing that had cherry. So I think I'd put cherry second and probably blueberry third.
That's fair.
Just for my biases, I rattled off the top. Just like, because yeah, raspberry adds that tartness and I like a really tart stout. So I'm like, yeah, raspberry's where you got to go. And then cherry just adds like a really complex, kind of deeper flavor. And I kind of think blueberries, just it doesn't pack as much punch. And when you're drinking a sour, like I feel like a sour needs to bring some punch.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm a little more on the milder side of sours. I like sours, but I have a mental block with raspberry because as an artificial flavor, it's like one of the worst. And so I know that like when you're actually making a beer and you're using real fruit, you're not going to get as much of the artificial candy flavor, but I think raspberry is a terrible artificial flavor. So I when I see raspberry, I'm like, meh, I'll pass.
Artificial raspberry and cooked blueberry, just not good in beer.
Yeah. I'm going to be struggling going back to that one.
Yeah. So now that we've tried each one individually, do you want to go back and let's you want to try to sort out our rankings here?
Yeah, I think I need to go around the world and taste at least 3 out of 4 of them.
I was to say, do we want to, like, we've completely gotten rid of any suspense on what probably will be the last place one.
Yeah, number 4, the Blue Money IPA,
which is I mean, a blueberry IPA is, there's probably a reason why people don't do it, but I really had my hopes up because I think Boulevard is like very, I mean, they're such a big brewery, but they're under the radar, like so good. I feel like most of the stuff they make is like really good. So obviously there's a reason why they're so big, but to me, it seems like they don't get as much respect as it seems like they maybe deserve. I don't know.
I 100% agree with Boulevard beers. They make some great beers that we've had on the podcast before. So they seem like they should be a big box brewery, but they're solid beers usually. This one, I'm sorry, Boulevard, but maybe put this one into retirement.
Yeah, nobody shoots 100%.
Yeah.
All right, so that leaves 3. Have you gone back and tried the originals yet? Now that they've warmed up a little,
I've noticed that the nose has changed a lot as the blonde has warmed up. It's almost a little more yeasty.
Yeah, I get that.
And since we've addressed this issue on the how does beer taste warm, I feel like the blonde you get a little bit more aftertaste as it warms up than you do with the cream ale. Like the cream ales, I feel like it's just a little bit cleaner, and I think between those two, I'm kind of leaning a little bit towards the cream ale.
Yeah, that effervescence on the sip is still there, which I'm kind of surprised with how fast the foam settled. I thought that would kind of evaporate off immediately, but no, it's still there. Yeah, it still finishes clean. Whereas, yeah, you're right. That blonde, I was starting to think there was like a syrupy flavor to it, but you're right. It's just like the kind of yeasty kind of aftertaste, which isn't bad at all. It just kind of lingers more. Whereas the cream ale finishes super clean. I feel like if you're drinking a blueberry beer, you want it easy drinking, light, crisp, and clean. So that lingering aftertaste, whereas it's not a bad thing, but in this kind of scenario, it's not as ideal.
Yeah, I feel like blonde beers in general have a little bit more of that aftertaste. But the real question is, so I think we've both leaned towards the cream ale over the blonde, which is above the Boulevard IPA. But where do these 2 light beers stack up against the sour, Ryan? I think I know your answer. You're a sour man through and through.
I mean, I was going to build up the suspense, but if you're going to just
I know you.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why blueberry is such a popular sour adjunct. One of the most popular is, it works so well with that tartness. The tartness and the sweetness go hand in hand. It just like accentuates the best parts of what a blueberry is, even though, I secretly said I don't really like blueberries, but I understand why they go well together. So yes, the blueberry sour is my number 1. So it goes sour, cream ale, blonde, blueberry IPA. What about you, Drew?
Before we get to me, like, are we saying that you're now a blueberry believer, or you're not ready to stand on that pedestal yet?
I don't know. We may need to tease that one for the season finale for me to debut if I'm a blueberry convert. Because I know everybody cares so much.
He's a changed man, people.
No, this honestly, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a blueberry convert, but this does give me much more of an appreciation of what blueberry can do for a beer. It definitely has enlightened me on that.
I will say too, like if you're going to grab a blueberry sour from anybody, I think Prairie is probably a good choice for that. Prairie makes some good beers, both stouts and sours. All right, so as much as I would love to pick the cream ale as number 1 because I predicted it that I would pick it, and I just want to do it for principle, I've got to agree with you that the sour is the most natural style and the best beer that we're drinking today with the combo with fruit in it. I do have a bonus question for you, Ryan. So there's a lot of debate in the industry about putting fruit in your beer as you're drinking it. it's a sign of class when you take a lime or something and put it in your drink. So would you ever, with any of these beers, consider taking a whole blueberry and dropping it in for good measure?
So honestly, I mean, of all things to add to like a beer, a blueberry would be like the least intrusive one. Cause like we talked about during the brewer's notes, if it's got that intact like skin, it's not going to release like much. So it'll probably just float around in your beer and just look fancy.
Looking fancy. I actually had some blueberries in the fridge. I really am regretting not having it here to do a little experiment.
So yeah, throw some.
I feel like they just get in the way when you're trying to take sips because they just all just float around the top. Kind of like marshmallows when you're drinking hot chocolate.
Oh yeah, there you go. My brother serves a seltzer at the brewery, and it's a cherry limeade inspired by the Sonic drinks. Very good, by the way. Like the best seltzer I've ever had. Completely unbiased. You can get it clean, like with nothing in it. You can get it with a cherry dropped in and a lime on the rim, or you can get it all the way, which is those two, and also a little bit of like the maraschino cherry juice sprayed into it to tint it pink. So there's always the offer to people when they get it, like how dressed up they want it to be.
Nice.
Yeah, not beer related.
Honestly, I actually went on a while back our sister podcast Burn Appetit to talk about Sonic, and I admitted in that episode that the Sonic Cherry Limeade is one of my favorite all-time drinks. So I think I may need to make a trip up to Nook just for that.
You need to make the pilgrimage.
Because Lord knows the one in the store, the Sonic branded seltzers. Actually, I'll be honest, the Cherry Limeade one wasn't that bad, but the rest of them were garbage.
Yeah, those were contract brewed by a brewery in Oklahoma.
I could not walk out of the store without purchasing those. They just sung to me.
You're a sucker for the gimmick sale.
Yeah. All right, y'all. I think we're at the close of our episode today. This was a lot of fun putting adjuncts side by side, figuring out the best style for an adjunct. I think this may be a recurring episode series that we need to do. What do you think, Ryan?
I agree. As long as brewers keep coming up with new weird ingredients to add, I think we need to do new episodes to track which ones are good and which ones are not.
Hell yeah, man. And you got to stay tuned to the podcast because we have got some great episodes coming up. It's Oktoberfest season, and the Beer and Ain't Easy podcast. We've have 2 episodes from previous years, so we're coming back with some heat. So keep listening to us on all your favorite platforms and check out our other sister podcasts on Cross the Streams Media. So, Ryan, would you like to close us out?
I took offense when you insinuated that we weren't, complex beer critics. So you've inspired me to be more thoughtful with my closing thoughts here on the beers we've had tonight. So I know we liked the Fullbrook, the blueberry cream ale, but an effervescent mouthfeel can't dethrone the tart sweetness at play in a blueberry sour. But we can all agree that a grassy hop bitterness just doesn't play nice with the kinds of fruity sweet flavors that blueberries bring to the table.
Well said, good man.
Good night, sir.
This has been a Beering Ain't Easy production out of Houston, Texas. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook or at our website at crossthestreamsmedia.com, where you can find our podcast and all the other great sister podcasts on our network.
This has been a Cross the Streams Media Podcast.